So it is about time to be in our class tonight. If you want to open up your, I sound very loud right now. I can't move it down anymore, so maybe we can. If you want to open up your Bibles, we'll be in Joshua chapter 24. And our power passage is in 14 and 15. But before we start that, we're going to start with a word of prayer. Our great God, we're thankful for this amazing character and this time that we can learn about your servant Joshua and what he did for the kingdom. Help us to open up the word and to understand what happened in his life and to apply these scriptures to us as you know how. Thank you for all of our blessings. In Christ's name, amen. All right, so the way we're going to kind of do it today is we're going to read our passage and we're going to do some introductory stuff here. So again, our power passage is coming from Joshua chapter 24, starting in verses 14 and 15. I'm going to put my glasses on because I read better with my glasses. It says, "Now therefore fear the Lord and serve him with sincerity and faithfulness. Put away the gods that your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. And if it's evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods of your fathers served from the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose lands you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." So as I was doing the kind of my introduction passage here, I realized how much I really just love this study of Joshua. It is just packed of great information, great applications to us. So I say that Joshua, you could have an entire quarter class on the book of Joshua. There's just so much information in there. So we're going to try to pack all that into a 40-minute conversation here, and hopefully we'll get some good conversation out of it. So as you see here, we're at the very end of Joshua and when this quote comes up. And to really get the full picture, the full understanding of what's going on, you almost automatically have to go back to the very beginning. So before I go any farther, I have some papers for questions. Does anybody want a handout? There's one up here. Herb? So like I said, we're going to go back several generations here to understand the big picture of what's going on, how Joshua is transformed into the character that we are now seeing in this scripture. It is vital to our study. And most of our questions will come at the end there. I'm going to try to throw some in here every so often, but I don't want to hear me talk the whole entire night. I think it makes for a not enjoyable class. But we'll go that route here. All right, so just some brief history and context here. So we go all the way back to the book of Genesis, right? We go back to the book of Genesis, chapter 50. We see that Joseph has now died. He's dies in the land of Egypt. And that says that the end of that chapter, the beginning of Exodus, is that the old nation dies away, and the new nation is now being born, right? This is now giving the children of Israel. And this is idea of the seed promise that was promised to Abraham. You're going to see this all throughout our study tonight. This is going to play a big part of the conversation. The children of Israel are in Exodus chapter 1, and it says that Joseph has been forgotten, right? His memory has been forgotten. They don't understand who he was, and so they are now enslaved in Egypt. And of course, Moses is selected to redeem his people. The people cry out. God says, "I'm going to save my people." So this is when Moses comes into the picture. Of course, in Exodus chapter 5, we have that famous saying of "let my people go." And then chapter 7 through 11, we have the plagues on Egypt. All right, so from there, we're going to jump to the children of Israel. They're now into the wilderness, right? We have the famous crossing the Red Sea, and this is going to be a big part, right? It's going to be a big part in Joshua's life because he's going to remember this later on. So the Red Sea, and then we're going to kind of skip ahead, just even a little bit more past that, is when Moses sends out the spies in Numbers chapter 13. So Moses sends out the spies. He sends out 12 spies. He says, "I want you to go spy out the land," right? The promised land has been given to you. It's beautiful. It's flowing with milk and honey. It's perfect, right? So he sends out the spies and he tells them, I need you to go tell me who's there, why they're there, what's the fortified positions. This is a military conquest. Remember, they're still having to go into the land of Canaan and conquer it. So they're doing a recon mission here. So Moses sends out the spies, and we are introduced to the spies come back, and the spies say, the report is the land's beautiful, right? The land is everything that we've been promised, flowing milk and honey, except we have a big problem. This is what 10 of them say, is we have a huge problem here. And the problem is we're too small, they're too scary, we're definitely going to lose, right? We cannot go and defeat these people. And the other two people are our character Joshua and Caleb. So I said this is our introduction to Joshua. Joshua's all throughout Exodus, all the way through the book here. But this is kind of when we get into our character of Joshua, and it kind of gets into our first question, which was, and I said do some homework on Joshua before I say Joshua chapter 1. What stands out about his life during different times? So hopefully you can read my mind and understand the context. I asked Melinda, I got one up here, read my mind of how I wanted the questions. I always have Melinda proofread my questions to make sure they make sense, and she said it made sense, so.
So I've got Joshua. He didn't become Joshua in Joshua 1. Joshua, he was a warrior in Exodus 17. He was Moses' assistant. He was one of the 12 spies. He learned to follow God before he became a leader.
Yes. Yep, very good. Any other comments for that one? All right. So Tim hit them all hit them all on the head here. So the first thing I kind of pointed out is that Joshua was a follower before anything else, right? He knew how to follow, right? There's always this maybe it's our culture, but there's always this idea that you have to be the first person in, or you have to strive to always be the leader. You always have to be the first person to lead the group, right? Joshua was a great follower because he followed directions from Moses and from everyone else. The second thing is that Joshua was a military leader. He was a military warrior, right? So if we're looking at the context of this time, Joshua understood what was going on, right? And at this time, they needed a military warrior. They were conquesting kings, and they're going into lands. They needed people to actually go and fight. And Joshua was definitely one of those people. And then, like I said, he was also Moses' assistant. So again, all of these things have kind of culminated into Joshua's core being, right? It is who he becomes when he becomes the actual leader. And that's the last thing I kind of point out, is that Joshua does become a leader, right? But I think Joshua becomes a leader and becomes a good leader because he knew these three things before he was a leader. I kind of started thinking about how that kind of applies to us today. And I'm going to put in for a plug for our eldership workshop here coming soon, right? This is a training opportunity. It's not just for the men, but it's for everybody to learn, to understand here more. So it's this idea that he was taught. By our terms, Joshua was Moses' protege, right? He was being brought up. Before even he was selected to be brought up, Joshua was being geared into this position. And I think in each role he does play, becomes very critical to his core values. Right. So like I said, Joshua's original name, we already mentioned here. Joshua's name was Hoshea. He was the son of Nun. I found it interesting that sorry, my type font's a little small up there. Hoshea means salvation, or he has saved. And when his name is changed over to Joshua, I believe there's a distinctive purpose in why his name was changed. And Joshua means the Lord is my salvation, or Yahweh saves. And I said this is going to be important for Joshua because in everything that Joshua does, it is going to amplify the Lord, right? It is the Lord saving us. I'm not doing it. It is the Lord's promises, not my promises. He is a vessel through him, but Joshua understands this from the very beginning. Right. So we already kind of talked about it a little bit before, but Numbers chapter 13 and 14, I really think are a big point in Joshua's bringing up here, right? So this is when Moses sends out the spies. We already kind of talked about that. And that the land is exceedingly beautiful, and that everybody who comes back, they keep on saying this land's great, but we're never going to conquer it, right? They say we're tiny little grasshoppers compared to these people. But it was Joshua and Caleb who says, you need to have faith over fear. And I love it, I love it, I love it, because it kind of goes into our theme for this year, right? Faith over fear, we need to trust in God. And above all else, Joshua trusted in God immensely, even to the point where this idea that these conquests that they would be going through seemingly would be impossible. But Joshua knew that through his faith, that God would be with them. Numbers chapter 27, you see that Joshua is commissioned by God through Moses. Like we said, he's going to be our kind of that geared up, that person that's going to take the reins here. I think Moses can see that his time is coming to an end, and that a new leader would need to emerge from that. Deuteronomy 1, Moses tells the people that Joshua is going to lead them into the land. Deuteronomy 31, Joshua becomes the successor after Moses' death at 120. And he's given this charge of be strong and courageous, and God is with you. And this is said again in chapter 1 of Joshua, which we're going to talk about in 1 minute. And at the end of Deuteronomy, chapter 34, it says Joshua is full of the spirit of wisdom. Now, I'm going to take a deep breath there. That was 400 plus years of history leading up just to Joshua chapter 1 here. So are there any kind of comments about, I would call them the young Joshua? What kind of stands out to you? What did you like? Is there anything any stories that are just kind of been talked about? All right, we'll move on then. Oh, sorry, we got one over here.
Really, the one thing that stands out is the faithful report that he had.
Right.
I think that just illustrates kind of the culmination of what led up to that.
Right.
His strong faith, and so how he could give a faithful report.
Yeah. Yeah, my mind automatically, so when I start rereading these stories again, I feel a little jealous of the ladies' classes, that especially when they get to do all these younger Bible stories. Like, I forgot about a lot of these stories. So it was really good to kind of relearn all of these stories all over again. And my mind kind of went over, we got a question over here, a comment. My mind really kind of went to David, and when David was fighting Goliath, right? This is going to be later on. But how he trusted in God when it seemed impossible.
Daniel, I got one. I'm always impressed with Joshua, how he got stuck in the wilderness for 40 years for stuff that he did not do.
Yeah.
It's like in the military, one guy messes up and the whole platoon, is punished for it. And it's like, man, him and Caleb, right? They were the only faithful ones. And yet he still had to suffer in the wilderness for 40 years. And instead of blaming God for being unfair and forget it, he still stepped up to serve the Lord.
Yeah,
Impressive.
exactly.
I just appreciate that. How did Joshua get picked to be one of the spies? He must have stood out in the tribe of Ephraim in some way to say, hey, let's send him.
Yep.
He must have had some kind of notoriety, some kind of courage, boldness, whatever it may have been, to stand out from all of his tribe.
Yeah.
And that may have been, maybe that's where he started showing his potential of being a zealous follower.
Yeah.
And then teach me how to lead. And, so he was one of those 12, and he had to come back. He couldn't sit back and just listen to everybody else. He had to speak out what he saw. He and Caleb saw. He didn't stay quiet. He wasn't just impassive.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of those things we're going to see play a super important point in Joshua's life, right? From Joshua chapter 1, so we can flip over now. We're in Joshua chapter 1 here. And all of these things are going to play a huge part into Joshua's life. So, I'll flip this slide in here. So we're in Joshua chapter 1, and I'll put the question up here in a second. But I want to read verses 5 through 7 from Joshua 1. Joshua 1 verse 5 says, "No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life." This is God talking to Joshua. "Just as I have been with Moses, I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you." And he says, "Be strong and courageous, for you shall cause these people to inherit the land which I swore to your fathers, to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do accordingly to all the law of Moses, my servant, commanded you. Do not turn from the right or to the left, that you may have good success in wherever you go." So the second question I had up here, I said, when God selects Joshua, he's told to be strong and courageous. So I said, do your best at this idea of comparing and contrasting this idea of being strong and being courageous. And then where are they similar and where are they different? Oh, we got Phil. There we go. We got one.
I look at the word strong here in its context of being strong in character. He had to have a strong constitution within him. He knew what he believed, and he acted on what he believed in faith. He didn't doubt it. The courage part is simply having that courage in the presence of fear and not letting it stop you from moving ahead.
Yeah, that's going to definitely play a huge part. I guess we can pass the mic right over to him. Hey, Brock, right there. Right there. Brock.
Thank you.
There you go.
I guess this is just kind of another way to say what Phil was kind of saying to me. Courage, I see as your ability to put aside your fear.
Yeah.
But the strength that goes with it is a steadiness and a discipline that kind of gives you the endurance to stay, to keep that fear at bay and to stay focused.
Yeah. So all these things, the be strong and courage, I do think they are two different ideas, right? So does anybody else want to comment before I start piping in here? Oh, we got one more, Jason. Oh, then we got one down here. Hey, Brock, right here.
I read this and
Miss Anna.
it says, "Be strong and courageous." Those words are not just a suggestion; they're a calling.
Yeah.
Strength does not mean you never feel fear. It means you choose faith in the middle of it. Courage does not mean the absence of uncertainty. It means stepping forward even when the outcome is uncertain. I just thought that was interesting because most people, when he defines strength here, he says, it doesn't mean you don't feel fear, you choose faith in the middle of it. Most people would call that courage, but he's calling that strength. And I think to your point about the theme for the year, choosing faith over fear, that is a level of strength you're displaying when you choose faith over the fear.
Yeah.
It can also be described as courage, but it takes a strong person to choose faith in the middle of fear.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, audio, can we turn that mic down just a tad? Like you're.
That was probably me, Daniel.
No, it's getting a lot of reverb back up here. All right, Miss Anna.
I see courageous also is when you need to, you take bold action.
Yeah, exactly. So I did my very best at doing I think this is called a Venn diagram here. I'm getting some nods, so it seems like that's right. So I kind of put these into kind of categories here, right? So I put it into the mentally strong and the physically strong. The mental strong, they think clear, they're rational, they're logical. The physical strong, especially for Joshua, and thinking about in context, is they are military strong. Now I'm glad Mike is here because I literally put this up here for you, because I had you in my mind. I said, I can never do an Ironman without even, the thought that I would go into this is crazy to me. But how much training did you have to do? Tons, right? You cannot just go, I'm going to sit on the couch, and we kind of talked about this in the last couple of classes. Sit on the couch, and I'm going to run an Ironman. Like, you're literally going to die. But it was this idea of being physically strong here that they needed. But he also needed to be courageous, in this idea of mental courageous. It's not a lack of fear, but it's the calm action and presence of fear, choosing values over comfort. And then I said there's that physical courage too. It's the willing to place your physical well-being, sometimes physical pain, over personal comfort. But I said in that middle there, let's see if it wants to come up. It's white. Yeah, that's horrible. So the inner one is this inner confidence, right? There's a determination, right? Micah, could you ever do an Ironman if you were not absolutely determined to do an Ironman? There's no way, right? You had to want that goal. You had to want that. So both of them are purpose-driven. They're determination here. All right. So major themes of the book of Joshua. We're going to see that. Did I skip? No, I didn't. Major themes. We're going to see that God keeps His promises, but He expects obedience, and said God's going to trust. And that the kingdom definitely needs soldiers here. And I'm going to fly through these because I'm running out of time here. So chapters 1 through 5 is, I call it the battle plan, right? This is get ready for battle. We're going to go into the land. We're going to defeat the people, defeat the kings. Chapters 6 through 12 is the conquest of the land. You have the Jericho. You have different campaigns going on. Chapters 13 through 21, you have the divisions of the land, right? How are these being divided up? And 21:45 says, not one word of all good promises that the Lord has made, that the house of Israel had failed. All had came to pass. So I go back to what I said at the beginning. The land, nation, and sea, this is seen all throughout Joshua into who he becomes for where we see him here. Chapter 22, chapter 23, Joshua is very, very old, right? It says he's old, he's very advanced in years, in that this is his kind of his final farewell exhortation to the people. So Joshua chapter 23 verse 6 commissions the people in almost the same exact verbiage that he says to be strong, right? And he wants the tomb to remind them of what they've been through. All right, now we're in our chapter. So chapter 24, we can go and jump over to chapter 24 here. And I want to read the first 5 verses just to kind of set the setting here. It says, Joshua gathered the tribes of Israel to Shechem and summoned the elders and the heads and the judges and all the officers of Israel, and they presented themselves before God. And Joshua said to the people, thus says the Lord, of God of Israel, long ago your fathers lived beyond the Euphrates, the Terah, the father of Abraham and of Nahor, and they served other gods. Then I took your father Abraham from beyond the river, and I led him to the land of Canaan, and made his offering his offspring many. I gave him Isaac, and to Isaac I gave him Jacob and Esau, and I gave Esau the hill country of Seir to possess. But Jacob and his children went down to Egypt. And so I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt with what I did in the midst, and afterwards I brought you out. So here we are. This is Joshua. This is God speaking through Joshua here. So we continue on, verses 5 through 7 is the deliverance from Egypt. Remember that you were enslaved. Remember this. Joshua says this is very important. Remember where you were. You were in Egypt. You were under the gods. You were enslaved. You cried out, so I saved you. So 8 through 12 is the conquests and victories. The Lord saves you, right? It is not Moses. It is not anybody else. It is the Lord who saves. In verse 13, he says, you're receiving the rain. And again, he wants to point out that God is saving you. He says, I gave you the land that was promised and that was being fulfilled. All right, so now we have Joshua chapter 1 through 13. I said, why does Joshua go through the long list of history here? How can this information be useful for us today? So how does Joshua use the history that he's kind of, you got one up here, Carrie Ann. The history of the people through the last 400 years, how is he using this?
I think pretty simply, he's reminding them of all of the times that God came through for them,
Yeah.
and all that he's done. But, reminding them too that he did that because of their obedience and that they trusted him. And so then he's putting the challenge before them. And I guess this is all the reason that they should choose to serve him.
Yeah, exactly. You got Tim up here? Yeah, the one of the things I'll tag along with that was this is their covenant reminder, right? That God is their people. He is their God, and that God is faithful to them.
There's a common view of religion today that God said, do this, do that, do this,
Yeah.
do that. And so people have this idea that that's all it is. But here God starts with, look what I have done for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because if you don't have that backing to pivot off of, there's going to be problems in your life really understanding God's beautiful gifts and everything if he's just simply the rule keeper,
Right. Got Jason back there?
I think it demonstrates God's faithfulness.
Oh, yeah.
And I say that specifically because, to Tim's point, and the other points as well, in a few minutes, Joshua's going to ask them to choose to be faithful to God.
Don't get ahead of me now. No, come to it.
But he's not going to ask them to do that blindly. He's going to say, remember.
Yeah.
And he brought up, the history that he brought up was well known
Yeah.
to these Israelites. And he's simply making the point, God has always been faithful to you,
Yeah.
his people.
Yep.
And I think that's the whole point of the history,
Yep.
is God has been faithful to you always without exception.
Always. Yeah, that was what literally my next point was. This is literally an identity reminder for them, right? To remind them of, you are chosen, right? You are my people. I will take care of my people. So this is a reminder for them to understand that of their heritage and understand of their promise that was given to them specifically. I got a couple more. Does anybody have the last? Oh, got one up here.
Something Jason said that stuck, that they knew this, but he reminded them anyway, and bring it to us today. Like we don't like to admit it, but we need reminding all the time, over and over and over. And God, there's so many patterns in the Word of how we do things and why we do things. Regularly meeting together, taking the Lord's Supper, all these things that we do, and you might say, oh well, it's too much, or we should do it less to make it special, or whatever you could say. God knows that we need reminding of stuff that we already know.
Yep.
And but we don't like to admit that.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the applications I really thought of that really goes into that is that this idea is that if we don't know our past, right, we are doomed to repeat it, right? So if we don't understand our past in our lives and past of what's happened behind us, we're doomed to repeat the mistakes that they have already made that have gotten us to that point. And then we'll get into this in a second here, is this idea of that choice. We have free will, right? They had a choice. I know a lot of times we don't think that they had much of a choice. They definitely had a choice in all this, right? And we're going to see that here in a couple verses. And it's a lesson in gratitude, right? It's a lesson that God does everything for you, right? God is here. He's always will be here. He will always be there in the past, present, and future. We always need that reminder. And I don't know why we always need that reminder, Matt, but we always need that reminder, even for us today, that is, God is always present in our lives. So that's one of the reasons that they go through this long list of history here. All right, so now we can jump down to our actual passage for the class here, which I know this doesn't sound like hope I didn't make it sound like a side passage here. This is the main purpose of the class here. So we're going to read it again here. It says, "Now therefore, fear the Lord and serve him with sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods of your fathers that have served beyond the river and in Egypt. Serve the Lord. And if it is evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, choose whether the gods of your father served beyond the region, beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. All right. So we're going to kind of go into our next little section of questions here. So please comment. We have the next 10 minutes to go through these, so I think we'll have plenty of time. So I said the first part of Joshua chapter 14, it said, what does the fear of the Lord look like today? And how is this with sincerity and in faithfulness? Got Tim up here. Oh, Phil got one.
Yeah, I had one on the previous comment, but I'm going to let Tim go first. I've already forgotten what I wanted.
Go ahead.
That's okay. All right, we can go back, so just let me know.
Okay, I was just going to bring up Jim Holland, who used to be one of the elders here. He would explain the fear of the Lord as being this reverential fear and this idea of awe and things like that. This idea of sincerity tells me that I'm not just playing a role, some sort of religious role here. And this idea of faithfulness doesn't mean I'm always here on Sunday.
Yeah.
What's going on here is supposed to impact the way that I treat my wife, the way I treat people who have hurt me, the way I treat everyone.
Yeah.
And that's what God's looking for here, is that it's a reverential fear of the Lord in a way that it changes everything about me.
I love that. I don't even know if I necessarily even considered that when I was writing my thoughts down, but I really like that this idea of the fear of the Lord is really, it affects everything, right? Because of that fear in the reverence we have for God, it affects every part of our life like that. All right, Phil. All right.
How this applies today. We live in a great country. And one of the messages that I hear a lot of is DIY, do it yourself, or do it your own way, or drive your own path, create your own whatever. The fear of the Lord means that I'm living in the presence of God. In that fear, I recognize how awesome He is and how little I am.
Yeah.
And because of that, my fear will cause me to say, listen, I can't have success. Still, I've got to look at God today. So I've got to learn how to walk with Him, stay in His presence, be faithful to His call, and continue to do what Joshua did, even when he was old.
Yeah.
He still went up there and fought for his country.
He still fought. So Psalms chapter 145, verse 5 says, the glorious splendor of your majesty, your wondrous works, right? This idea of the fear of the Lord, of that God, we have to understand who God is and who we're talking to, right? This is not your buddy down the road here, even though God portrays himself as our closest friend, right? So there's that idea of who you're talking to. When Job starts talking, when Job wants to talk to God, he says that I am so small and so insignificant. What can I even say? Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate Tim's comment because he takes fear and takes it back to reverence. And one of the things that we today should revere about our God is His love.
Yeah.
And so I believe that part of the fear of the Lord is looking at the love He demonstrated with reverence. He gave His Son for us.
Yeah.
He let His Son suffer and die for us. He let His Son bear all of our sins before we were even born, so that we would have a chance to have a relationship with Him. And that is reverential. That is something that is awesome. We overuse the word awesome in today's society.
Yep.
But that dictates our response. And our response is, I think, more sincere and more faithful when it is in response to that love.
Yep. All right. So we're going to kind of speed ahead here. I had this question. I want to skip to the next question, but I said, what idols do we need to get rid of with in our own life, right? Man, this one really hit me hard because I go, what do I really hold above God, right? I go, man, this stupid little device right here, this is a big one for me, right? Social media, your family, right? Is family holding you back from God? 100% possible, right? So I want to get to the next question here because I want to get some more discussion out of it. So chapter 24, verse 15 says, choose this day whom you will serve. So I said, how does the command to choose challenge you to take ownership? We have 5 minutes here, and I think we're right around the right time. So,
I'm not sure if this answers the question, but the question makes me think about is we hear a lot as Christians that it's never too late to follow Christ.
Yeah.
But this verse, it's saying decide now.
Yep.
And it presents it as a fork in the road. And it matters because, and I'm not really good with my history in this, but I don't think good things happen to the Amorites.
I don't think so either.
And so it mattered. And so I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. It's just that, it really puts the position on now that you may not get a chance later.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. There is a decisive. If you don't make a choice, I'm not going to skip my invitation because I have the invitation tonight too. But if you don't make a choice, I promise you a choice will be made for you at some point.
I think it's two things as well. In addition to what was just said, it's a daily choice. Choose this day.
Yeah.
Of course, he was referring to that day, but it's a daily choice. And secondly, he's saying make it be mindful.
Yeah.
Make a conscious decision. Like you said, don't just let things happen. Make the choice to serve the Lord or not.
Yeah, exactly.
In other words, you have an option here. You have an option here.
Definitely have an option.
There's an option here on who you're going to serve. You're not just making a choice to serve God. If you aren't serving God, you've made a choice. Yep. Who are you serving?
Yeah.
He's being very blunt here, I think.
Yeah.
Take ownership.
Exactly. The one word that stuck out to me, and I have to throw in some kind of a gif or a meme here, is freedom, right? They've been given freedom to choose. We've been given we love this word freedom. I love Braveheart because of the idea of freedom behind it, right? But we've been given freedom. We have been made free in Christ. We can either choose to be free or we can choose to be enslaved, right? Now, when you put it like that, maybe it's not necessarily a tough choice here. Right.
Yeah, and sometimes we can kind of ride the fence and we can have one foot in the church and one foot in the world, and we serve God when it's convenient, but then when it's hard, then we do our own thing.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of Elijah, when he confronts the people and he says, listen, how long will you waver between two opinions? If God is God, we'll serve him. If Baal is God, we'll serve him. But don't sit here and try to serve both of them.
Yep.
And act like you're double-minded. Choose, basically. Make a choice.
Yeah.
Take ownership.
Very good. So we're getting to our last question, and we only have a couple minutes here, but it says service is emphasized several times, and I think I counted 5 or 6 times just in this chapter alone, but it's a major theme throughout the Bible. So I said for our last question is, how can we serve today, right? There's lots of different opportunities. We have about a minute and a half, so pick one that you really like and talk about the service that we can do here and now. Okay, cricket. So how can we serve? What are some ways we can serve? I can think of a ton. I know Matt and I can think of a ton. Right, I'm gonna pick the low-hanging fruit here since we all have about a minute left. Right, Matt and I always need teachers. Right, we always need people in these classrooms. Right, this is a big service to our younger generation. Remind you, we're the older generation now. Some have more wisdom, some have a little less, but we are spreading on that wisdom to our younger classes. So one of the ways we can serve, no matter what capacity, is to be in these classes. And if you're not in that capacity, I probably have not talked to you, and I don't know why, but come talk to me, and I promise you I will put you in that capacity. Worship, right? We have very faithful people, very faithful men here that are very capable of being a part of our worship service, leading prayers, I'm gonna pick up my friend Daniel back here because he's brand new here, and I've been so impressed that he's just jumped right in, right? How many people just kind of want to sit on the pews and just kind of want to like, well, I'm new, and I mean, he took, you can ring the bell. He did the announcements last week or a week before. He's like, well, I don't know who these people are, but we're going to say the announcements. I said, you know what? There's been people here for years and years and years that don't do announcements. So I promise you there's a way to serve in this church and serve your community as well. Thanks, you guys.